Hi, Jeremy here, Modern Vitality. In today's video, we are defining a term, medical independence. This is phenomenal. You have to understand this. When you look at any kind of healing strategy, you have to be able to understand if you're becoming more dependent or less dependent over time. I'm going to unpack this with some examples so that you can evaluate what you're currently doing, what you have been doing, and basically the path you're on, and see if where you're headed is where you actually want to be going. When we have a complex chronic health condition like fibromyalgia, anything autoimmune, Lyme disease, mold exposure, chronic fatigue syndrome, adrenal fatigue, reactivated Epstein-Barr. I can keep going. There's tons of these. Candida. We now have long haulers, right? All these conditions, they're a mess, right? It's complex. There's so many things to keep track of. You'll wind up with a stack of medical records, this big, of all the people who have kind of analyzed you from 20 different ways, all the testing, everything. It's a mess, right? What we want to do is make sure that all the energy, effort, time, money that we're putting into healing is actually taking us down the path we want to go, which means medical independence. All right, let's get started. First of all, I think it's important to note medical independence, right, looks different to different people. Everybody's in a unique situation. Some people go with medical independence, and what they're trying to do is get independent from the conventional Western medical system, right? Which means they have a long-term goal of like no pharmaceuticals, nothing like that. Everything's all natural. Even if they're on Synthroid right now and an antidepressant, their goal of medical independence means getting off all their meds. If that's you, you're going to need to have your prescribing physician or some other MD, doctor, somebody with those qualifications on board on your team to help you responsibly taper off of those, right? And you want to be able to fill in the gaps with other things that are more natural and more independent over time so that you're not just like leaving yourself hanging. Don't take yourself off any meds, right? Do this responsibly, do this safely. Of course, this channel is not medical advice. I'm here to share perspectives because we're both adults, right? With adult levels of maturity, and you are a self-aware individual with free will, right? So consult any medical professional. Don't go off what the guy on YouTube said and just take yourself off antidepressants or something, right? It's too violent for your body. Bring in a team that cares and that's aligned, right? So that's one version is, okay, medical independence. I want to get off of everything, right? Other people have a different version of medical independence. Sometimes it might be, yeah, I don't mind taking the sleeping pills, but I'd like to take them as needed instead of every night, right? They're not so hard and fast. That's fine, totally fine. And you're going to find what your definition of medical independence is, specifically your goal, right? That's up to you, how you define that. You don't have to look at other people and compete and compare and all that kind of thing. That's not what it's about. It's you on a path, right? And on a path that suits your vision, your lifestyle, your goals. Okay, so I need to get that. First, we need to make sure we're on the same page with that. I need to get that out. Now, when we're looking at medical independence, what that means is that you have to have a different paradigm than what most everybody else has in terms of looking at the human body, right? And I'll give you the paradigm right now. And a paradigm, by the way, means your worldview, the way you're looking at a problem, the belief system you have around it, the lenses you're using with your mind, like all your biases, all that stuff, that's your paradigm. It's the way you're thinking about something. And what we have is kind of built in from our culture. We get, as we're growing up, right? You start as a baby, and which babies do come into the world with a little bit of personality, right? They come in with their own flavor, but we immediately get colored. Our paradigms get colored by our parents, our culture, schooling, media, right? All these things. And it's subconscious, and it happens to all of us. So we have to make sure that we're looking at some of these cultural belief systems that we're inheriting. And a lot of what we've inherited in terms of medicine is that the body is out of line, needs to be managed, symptoms need to be suppressed, right? It's a lot of fighting. It's a lot of conflict and struggle. And this isn't just about health. We see this in our culture in other areas. We have, they call it the dominator culture, where we just go to nature and we just think we know better than nature, and we're just going to come in with technology and just muscle through systems that have been in place for thousands or millions or whatever of years, right? This is how we kind of treat nature. And we get blowback from that, okay? So we'll use a little bit of I'll use an analogy here, but like with farming. And I'm not a farmer. I'm not here to tell anybody how to farm. But what I can do is I can point out some of the long-term problems with unsustainable approaches, right? So when we go to farm and we say, it's going to be monocrop, meaning all these acres are going to be just corn or only soybeans, right? And we go with machines and muscle and we impose our will on the land, right? That's great. It works. We come through and we plow everything over and we just plant corn, right? And we've done it. However, what can happen is we can have long-term effects because by thinking we're smarter than the system that we're a part of, We wind up tinkering with something, and then there will be rebalancing in the form of symptoms. So the monocrop agriculture now is going to need constant fertilizer getting put in because you're not doing crop rotations, right? Like some different crops will be nitrogen fixing crops, right? So you're planting things that can pull in and actually help the soil become stronger. Maybe if you're not doing that, right, then you're going to have to keep adding in more fertilizer. You're going to have to keep relying on chemical inputs just to maintain balance or homeostasis, right? Monocrop agriculture. Now you've got one thing, corn, 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 corn. Any pest or disease that's specialized for corn is going to have a field day in there. So now you've got to be spraying and medicating your plants all the time. You've got to add more chemical inputs just to keep a balance, right? So over time, your soil is becoming weaker and your crops are becoming sicker. So there are some solutions for this, but it requires a whole new paradigm. Like we see regenerative agriculture, permaculture, these kinds of things, food forests, right? Organic farming methods. There's all these different ways people are trying to think about these problems. And the way to do it is not to just add more inputs, right? Not to just add more fertilizer over time, but instead to start to look at it and go, okay, how can I work with this system? How can I assume that nature is actually smart? And a lot of these second line, third line consequences that we're seeing is just part of this system that we're in. We need to start thinking ahead, think long term, right? So instead of my farm becoming more dependent over time, needing more fertilizer, needing more pesticides, right? Instead of that, my farm can become less dependent or more independent over time. Meaning we have now some natural rhythms built in. We've got symbiosis with different crops that are taking care of different things. It's really quite interesting. Now, when we apply it to the human body, it's the same idea. The same cultural bias that we have where we think we can just dominate nature, right? Of course, that's in our medicine, right? Why wouldn't it be? So when you come in with your complex chronic inflammatory condition, you say, hey, I'm having brain fog, I'm having exhaustion, I've got these weird pains that move around, and they seem to be related to the weather or my stress or what I eat. I'm not sleeping so well, I'm getting anxiety, my libido's shot, I don't have good digestion. I feel like I got a balloon in my abdomen, right? All these symptoms, they're signs. They're signs of your system responding to the inputs, to the way it's being treated, right? To the manifestations of our culture include what we eat, how we behave, right? All of our cultural norms, how we handle stress, what we see as normal, how late we stay up. All these things, they're kind of baked in. They come from culture, right? And it's the same thing when we try to solve that problem by just opposing the symptoms. Okay, well, here's your anti-inflammatory, here's your steroids, right? Here's your painkiller. We're gonna smother your immune system since it seems to be making so many problems for you, right? This inflammation is your problem. We're gonna smother that inflammation out. And pain, yeah, we'll kill the pain, we'll numb it. And if you can't sleep, we'll knock you out, right? Here's a sedative. Is your mood unstable? Here's a mood stabilizer, right? Now you've got a very predictable but very narrow bandwidth of human experience. And we'll just kind of clamp your brain into that wavelength, right? Really quite interesting, all the muscling that goes on in medicine. And of course, it can work. And I'm not here to pass judgment, right? We all have to make it work. Sometimes we have to rely on short-term solutions for a long time. That's just life. That's just how it is. However, in other cases, and it's worth exploring anybody's case, like, are there millimeters of ground we can gain, right? Can we take some more space, and does that open up some new possibilities? Meaning, if we look at your whole system, what are the inputs? What are the processes? What are the outputs? What's the feedback like? What's your environment, right? All these things, if we start looking at that and really analyzing that and assessing that with a holistic lens, we can start to figure out, why is your body creating these symptoms in the first place, right? Masking symptoms, suppressing symptoms, these are okay in the short term. Everybody needs a break from suffering sometimes. I get it. I totally get it. I remember when my wife was pregnant the first time, towards the end of the pregnancy, the midwife was saying, hey, if you have trouble sleeping, which some pregnant women do, it's okay to take an Ambien or something just for a few days. You don't want to get reliant on this, but it's okay just to get some kind of sleep because you're about to give birth, which is like a marathon, right? So these things aren't good or bad in and of themselves. They just need to be used in the right way, appropriately, right? So what happens a lot of times is people come in and they say, oh, I don't want to be on meds. I don't like meds. I've even heard a lot of patients say, I hate taking meds. I hate taking pharmaceuticals, right? Which is a strong word. We don't say hate a lot about a lot of things. And one of the reasons why I've noticed, there are a few reasons I think why people say that they hate taking meds and pharmaceuticals, is, you might hear some kids playing outside, is because we know that we're taking a short-term solution, a short-term band-aid, and we're trying to stretch it out and make it into a long-term fix. And we can feel the struggle in our system as we kind of keep pushing it. And it's no different than adding more fertilizer to the corn every year, adding more pesticides to the corn every year, when maybe we shouldn't be planting just corn in the first place, right? Maybe our whole paradigm is off. So this is how we start to get medical independence, is we need to be unattached from our ego of going, well, this is the way it's always been. This is what I've done. And instead we say, okay, we tried that. Let's look at some other things without worrying about feeling embarrassed about past mistakes, right? That we have to forgive ourselves first before we can even kind of zoom out. Once you've done that, once you're willing to zoom out, now we can see, where are our therapies taking us, right? Whatever you're doing, is it going to be making your body stronger or not? Does it respect the inherent strength of your body or not? So for example, here's another example, thyroid medication, right? In some cases you need it. Absolutely. You need to supplement your thyroid. I've had cases where people don't have a thyroid. It's gone, right? They had cancer. It was removed. There is no thyroid whatsoever. Zilch, right? So now they're taking Synthroid. Am I going to say, hey, you need to do medical independence. You need to get off that Synthroid, right? What would be the point of that? They're filling in a gap for their system, right? It's not a problem. However, same medication, different situation. Here's somebody with Hashimoto's, right? Now, Hashimoto's, you've got an autoimmune condition where the immune system's attacking the thyroid, okay? Which makes it so that the thyroid is underperforming, underproducing. So in that case, then we take thyroid supplementation, right? Because you have hypothyroid due to an autoimmune condition, right? So now you're supplementing your thyroid hormones. What does that do to your body? When we add in more hormones, we're kicking off negative feedback cycles, which basically tells our body to produce less, right? This is how we find balance. We find homeostasis. I learned this in 8th grade biology. I think your doctor knows it too. I think you probably know it too, even intuitively. When we add hormones from the outside, then our body gets the message and says, hey, I don't need to make those so much. It looks like they're covered somehow through diet, right? You're taking them as pills, taking them as medicines. So what that does, it downregulates your internal production even further. So now your thyroid, which was underproducing, is now getting the message that, hey, it should even produce less because you've got that handled. And now it's underproducing. And what that happens is long-term, you're going to have to increase your dosage of the synthetic thyroid hormones, right, over time. So in that case, you're supplementing for the body's getting weaker at its job, right? And you're going to be increasing your dosage over time, which means you're going to be becoming more dependent on the medicines over time. That's not medical independence. If we want medical independence, we need to go back and say, okay, why is this thyroid underproducing? Okay, if it is Hashimoto's, if you are having autoimmune reactions, what's going on here, right? Why is the immune system attacking the thyroid in the first place? Sometimes you can get lucky and you can have a case where it's molecular mimicry, where you have gluten intolerance. So you've got a leaky gut issue, the gluten's coming in and your immune system's starting to tag that and attack it. And it just so happens gluten looks a lot like thyroid tissue and the immune system's getting confused. It thinks there's bread in your throat. So it's attacking that too. And if you go off gluten, you can stop triggering your immune system and then it'll back off of your thyroid. Pretty interesting. That's not always the cure for Hashimoto's, but it can help significantly. And when you start thinking this way, you can go, okay, I want to get my body to be as strong as it can, right? As resilient as it can. This kind of mindset, this kind of belief, it does require a new way of looking at things. My work isn't for everybody. There are some people who are just like, listen, I don't care. I don't want to get strong. Just handle it, right? Patch me up. I got other things to do. Don't care. Not interested. I don't mind being reliant on a system. I don't mind being reliant on increasingly large amounts of hormone supplementation or medication or whatever it is, right? I don't care. I'm not focused on that, right? Those people don't do well in my world because we're philosophically not necessarily compatible, right? I mean, I say they don't do well. They can get good results, but it's never going to be this medical independence thing. You know, I'm all for meeting people where they are and trying to give people little branch solutions and, you know, little band-aid things if that's what's needed. But for me, ultimately, I mean, personally, my burnout level, I can't do that. I'm much more excited about somebody who, you know, it might take a longer time. I'm optimized for longer term relationships, right? It might take a longer time, but this is somebody who's building up to where they're becoming more free and more independent. And at the end of the day, I get to look back on those kinds of success stories and see a transformation and be a part of that. So for me, it's more satisfying. It's a lot more satisfying to work with people who are interested in medical independence. So this is the $1 million question, right? If you're looking at a new therapy, a new treatment, and you've got a doctor or a health practitioner or whatever, somebody, right, who's suggesting this. And it could be something you saw online or on an ad or in a forum or wherever, right? Whatever it is, here's the $1 million question. What's the exit strategy? Right? So if you're taking thyroid medication, right, and your doctor says, hey, I think you should take some Synthroid because you have this Hashimoto's and your thyroid's underperforming. And you say, what's the exit strategy? And your doctor says, well, there isn't one. You're going to be on this for the rest of your life. Okay, well, we know automatically that's not a medical independence type situation. Does that mean you should do it or shouldn't do it? It's going to be up to you. But you're coming in now armed with a longer term vision. What's the exit strategy? Well, there isn't one. We're going to steadily increase your dosage over time as we need to because your thyroid is going to become inherently weaker. This is your thyroid's degenerating, right? What is the medication speeding that along? Well, well, of course it is, right? They may try to get around that, but it's the best they can do sometimes. So that's another kind of topic is you got to give your doctor some slack. Sometimes you got to forgive your doctors because everybody, we're all trying the best we can. I'm not perfect. I don't know every single thing, right? I'm always learning, and practitioners will give you their best, right? But their best might not work for you. And you just need to have a healthy respect for that and go, okay, I need to find somebody else for this. That's okay, right? I've had people that I've needed to send out, I'm not the best fit for you. Go see this person. Try this approach, try that. You need surgery. I don't do surgery, right? It's normal to have some humility, but also be grateful for your doctors and cut them some slack because they're trying. Most doctors, I've got a lot of friends that are doctors. They're lovely people. They're very intelligent, big hearts, and they're stuck in a system that does not let them do good medicine, right? That they're not in a system that's aligned to medical independence. Of course, right? The incentives of the types of corporations that, that are behind that industry, they're not aligned for medically independent patients, right? Those industries and corporations, they want people dependent and hooked and constantly having to buy more, right? They don't mind. They don't make money off people that got better. They make money off people that are still sick. So you have to understand that. And that informs how doctors are taught to practice, right? So that informs the system, that informs a lot of things. That's why we build a parallel system, right? We get out of that system, we open our paradigm, we open up our minds, and we aim for medical independence. So what's the exit strategy? Jeremy, what's the exit strategy? You've got a program. You take people through stages 1, 2, 3, 4. What's your exit strategy? Yeah, exactly. Good question. I built that in, right? My exit strategy is each stage has its exit strategy. As your immune system gets better, you're going to get signs and symptoms specific to your case that'll tell you it's time to move on to stage 2. You're now exiting or starting your exit from stage 1. Isn't that cool? Same thing. Stage 2 has graduation signs. You can move to stage 3, to stage 4. And as you get through stage 4, there are very specific graduation signs. I don't need these herbs right now anymore. They got me to where I'm going, right? And this is the thing. I've spoken about this before, but having the understanding that what you do to get you from point A to point B may be the opposite of what you need to get from point B to point C. Right? So for example, if you're trying to cross a river to climb a mountain, right? You get in a little boat, you go across the river, you leave the boat there. You don't drag the boat up the mountain, right? The vehicle that got you from A to B is not going to be helpful. You don't want to carry a boat up a mountain, right? Leave it there. And if we have signs, right? Like, hey, the rivers, we're done with the water part. That's our sign. We've graduated from the boat. We can leave it here and we can start to climb our mountain now. Then it's very clear. Now, taking that same logic and wisdom to the human body and to healing, like, okay, what are we doing for stage 1 in our immune system? Great, we got to cross the river. We're ready for stage 2. Can we leave the boat behind? Right? And same thing happens when you get to like stage 4 or thereabouts, and you're getting your life back. And there's a lot of very, very encouraging and happy things that tend to happen at that point. And you start to know, okay, based on X, Y, and Z changes, right? I do all these specifics. Like in our group, we talk about this stuff. So I'm not going to get into it here. This video has gone on longer than I even was planning. But you get to that point where you can start to check some boxes and go, okay, I'm now well, right? I don't necessarily need this, or this anymore. I've become less dependent. I've become more independent. That's great. Then it's time to start testing yourself. Go, okay, now I'm going to start exercising again. I'm going to start socializing again, traveling again, right? Either start up a new relationship or rekindle the one that I'm in, right? I've been more sexually active with my partner again. That used to be something we didn't do, and now we're doing it, right? And you're starting to test your body and see kind of what you can handle. That's a whole different deal than when you're in stage 1 and you're all inflamed and anything can just set you off or make you flare, right? So having those distinctions will help you know when it's time to get out of the boat, right? And to leave it there and to go on to the next thing, because that's life. Life is change. Life is transmutation. And if you're not changing and you're not growing, you're kind of stuck in one place. You're stuck in this like stasis, which I see a lot of people have been stuck ill for a long, long time. And And the body even goes into kind of a hibernation mode too. You can even measure it. A lot of people's temperature actually is low because their body's just starting to freeze a little bit, right? You're just stuck. You're not growing. So we need to get you out of that. It's very, very important. And then long term, okay, is this going to keep me perpetually unstuck? Am I going to be able to grow and expand my life, or am I going to be dependent on this, right? So I talked about the cornfield, always having to increase the fertilizer levels, pesticide levels, right? Always more and more and more reliant on external things coming in. We want to go the other way as we're getting better. What's the exit strategy on this? How much internal strength am I going to be cultivating? Is this going to make me stronger in the long run, or is this going to make me weaker and more dependent? This is $1 million question. I encourage you to ask it. Also, if you're dealing with a complex chronic health condition, you don't have to do it alone. If you want company, we've got a great group. Modern Vitality Solutions and Support. I'm in there every day. We're off big tech, by the way. We have our own private chat group. You can ask me anything in there, and I can answer you with anything that I want to say without being worried about the big brother censorship going on, which is great if you want to get health information to not have to worry about that. So that's where we have our own private group. We have these conversations every single day. There's people from all over the world in there. We're international. It's free to join as a guest. You can find your application in the description box below this video, which is where you'd probably think the link would be. You'll find it. And if your application looks really good, like you're going to be a great fit for our group, I'll get back to you as soon as I can. I keep it cozy. Why do I keep it cozy? Well, so I can know who's in there. So that if you ask me something, I can give you a very specific perspective, right? Based on what I know of your case and your situation. If I've got 1,000 people in there, I cannot keep track of that. So I keep it cozy, but that also means that maybe a little bit of a wait before space opens up for you. Could be 2 weeks, could be 2 months. I don't know, but I'll get back to you as soon as your spot's ready. And I try to give everybody the same fair opportunity to come in. It's first come, first serve. Again, it's free to join as a guest. You can ask me anything. I've got a vault full of interactive videos where you can start to learn more and more and more about how to look at your health and get yourself a plan together so that you know what you need to do next so that you can heal your body, approach medical independence, start getting stronger, right? And start getting your life back. Get back to the fun stuff. You don't want to be researching your health all the time, right? You want to be living your life. That's our goal, right? And you need medical independence to really do that fully. So if this is something that's on your mind, it's probably one of the most important things you're dealing with. I'd encourage you to like and subscribe to this channel and do all those things so that you're training the algorithm to show you more information like this that'll help you get your health back, right? And then also you teach the algorithm to show this to other people who are like you, who need this kind of help and haven't quite found it yet, right? I appreciate that. I hope this video helps you. Let's get you feeling better. Cheers.